on Action News starts now.
We will not be kept out of this chamber by thugs, mobs, or threats.
That's right, we own it!
This temple to democracy was desecrated. Its windows smashed, our offices vandalized. The world saw Americans' elected officials hurriedly ushered out because they were in harm's way.
Violence never wins. Freedom wins. May God bless all who serve here and those who protect this place. And may God bless the United States of America. Let's get back to work.
A day filled with fear, filled with anxiety. It's ending with a renowned vow to keep America's most precious privilege alive, the basis of our Constitution.
Hours after rioters ambushed the Capitol, lawmakers say they are now back to work to finish the job. Both chambers fulfilling their responsibilities to certify the Electoral College votes, confirming Joe Biden's victory in the November election. As you see, a live look of the House taking the votes right now and the Senate giving their arguments in the process. The FBI and Capitol Police escorted senators back to their chamber around 8 p.m., more than 6 hours after Trump supporters attacked the Capitol, stating, "We have work to do."
The divisions in our country clearly run deep, but we are a resilient, forward-looking, and optimistic people, and we will begin the hard work of repairing this nation tonight.
Tonight, the Senate rejected challenges to Biden's election win in Arizona as they work to approve the Electoral College votes.
Some senators are objecting to results in battleground states, including Missouri Senator Josh Hawley and Kansas Senator Roger Marshall.
I hope that this body will not miss the opportunity to take affirmative action to address the concerns of so many millions of Americans, to say to millions of Americans tonight that violence is never warranted.
I want my fellow Kansans and all Americans to know that I've given as much consideration and thought surrounding the issue objecting to a state's electoral college votes as I did considering the treatment plan for a serious health concern. And today's decision, once again, is from my heart.
We have team coverage tonight, including local reaction to the events that unfolded. But first, we start with 41 Action News anchor Caitlin Canute. Caitlin, take us back to the beginning and how this all started.
Well, Dia and Kevin, the chaos that later unfolded all started initially with peaceful protesters who gathered at President Trump's Save America rally. Now, despite no credible evidence of widespread voter fraud and calls from his own party to accept the election results, the president urged thousands of supporters to march to the Capitol to, quote, stop the steal.
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Well, hundreds of people did just that, swarming the U.S. Capitol building. Again, this started as a peaceful protest, but the D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief says things changed as some protesters turned on Capitol officers.
As the demonstrators approached the United States Capitol grounds, there was a noticeable change in their demeanor. It was clear that the crowd was intent on causing harm to our officers.
Here, pushing their way through the barriers and scaling the Capitol building. This all happened shortly after 1 p.m. today. From there, rioters turned their attention to getting inside the Capitol. Frightening sounds for those inside, no doubt. About 90 minutes after getting past those barriers, the crowd used riot shields, as you see there, and other items to break windows and to bash in doors. Now, because of the threat, the House floor was evacuated, and the doors to the House chamber and the Senate were locked. But you can see, when rioters broke the glass, officers sworn to protect those inside drew their weapons, leading to an armed standoff. Some House members in the top gallery area were forced to shelter in place, with leadership telling them to get down, get under the seats, and put on gas masks.
They broke the glass. Everybody stay down. Get down.
As this is unfolding again, this was all happening as officers, who were later thanked by members of the Senate, held off the rioters there at the House chamber doors. Now, no lawmakers were seriously injured, but one woman who was inside the Capitol died after being shot by law enforcement. Although the circumstances of that shooting remain unclear, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy told Fox News that shots were indeed fired inside the Capitol. Yeah, you could hear the gunshots there. Now, just happening within the past half hour, our sister station in San Diego is now reporting that victim is a 14-year Air Force veteran from San Diego named Ashley Babbitt. Meanwhile, an FBI official told NBC News 2 improvised explosive devices were discovered on Capitol grounds. One was safely detonated. In all, we've boiled this down, but that took 6 hours for Capitol Police to manage to clear the rioters and sweep the Capitol before lawmakers were finally able to return inside. Now we want to show you a live look showing a much calmer scene inside. Reporting live in the newsroom, Caitlin Canute, 41 Action News.
Images that just take your breath away. Thanks, Caitlin. Tonight, questions about security, as many are trying to figure out how protesters were able to get inside.
Supporters of President Trump quickly overwhelmed and outnumbered heavily armed security officers, making their way onto the floor of both the House and the Senate. At chaos eventually led the mayor to ask President Trump to call in the National Guard. And as we learned tonight, that did not happen.
He didn't even call out the National Guard. At the request of Mayor Bowser of Washington, he didn't do it. Vice President Pence, after he was switched away by the Secret Service, somehow during the evening called out the National Guard. The president did not do it.
We talked with 2 local state senators who told us they believe race played a factor in how police were prepared.
If these people were black, they would be called thugs, criminals, and terrorists. But what they are is they are terrorists, and they are a threat to our democracy. They are a threat to what our founding fathers, and I'm a black person, so the founding fathers weren't even thinking about me, but they sure wasn't thinking that someone would come in and threaten and physically threaten the lives of those who we have elected to serve.
Yeah, I'm really shocked when I saw the police response from the Capitol Police when it came to the Black Lives Matter protest. There were plenty of police in place to stop that group of protesters. My question is, where was Capitol Police today to protect our nation's leaders?
One of those leaders, Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, took some time to talk with me over Zoom from lockdown about what happened in the nation's capital today.
Congressman, where do you place fault for what we witnessed at our nation's capital today?
Well, in some ways, it's the fault of many people in the country, because they believe, as weird as it might sound, that Donald Trump won an election that he soundly lost. I mean, this is the United States of America, the beacon of light for the rest of the world. And we just witnessed an attempted coup.
What's the feeling like to see those images?
Well, you know, we've grown accustomed to this new movement, but it's been encouraged by the President of the United States.
Where do we go from here? As a country, I mean, as a community, I mean, how do we, as you put it, stitch this all back together?
I do believe that this could be a time when we come out of the chaos and create something better, something that that the founders deserve, something that our children and their children's children can experience. And shame on us if we allow this dark and dismal day for democracy to go down without in my way of talking, a come to Jesus meeting with ourselves. This ought to be a time of introspection, the time that we look at who we are. And if we like it, then that's going to be very, very, very dangerous for the future.
We've got some sad news to report just into our newsroom. We've learned that 4 people died today during the occupation of the Capitol. 1 woman shot by police and 3 others died due to medical emergencies there at those protests.
For many political experts in our area, they say what unfolded today is no surprise. 41 Action reporter Ariel Rothfield joins us with more on that. Ariel.
Well, Kevin, I spoke with a UMKC professor who studies political violence, and she said the Capitol that unfolded, or the chaos rather, that unfolded at the Capitol was not surprising because tensions have been rising, fueled in part by rhetoric.
Almost entirely unprecedented in U.S. history. This is a violent mob that is attempting to subvert democracy in the nation's capital.
UMKC professor Rebecca Best studies political violence, but nothing prepared her to watch this.
This is not something that happened overnight. This is something that is the result of populist appeal that suggests that there's some true American core and that there's a fake America as well.
A message she says has been fueled by baseless allegations that the election was stolen.
Let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue.
The Insurrection Act is now. You have the power, sir, and we support you.
On Capitol Hill, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley has been leading the charge, objecting to the election results. While he said this Wednesday night,
violence is not how you achieve change. Violence is not how you achieve something better. Our Constitution was built and put into place so that there would be, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, no appeal from ballots to bullets, which is what we saw, unfortunately, attempted tonight. There is no place for that in the United States of America.
He also reaffirmed his position in questioning the election results.
What we're doing here tonight is actually very important. Because for those who have concerns about the integrity of our elections, those who have concerns about what happened in November, this is the appropriate means.
Kansas Senator Roger Marshall objected to the results, too, despite what transpired hours before.
I rise today to restore integrity to our republic. And I rise to join the many of our colleagues who are all concerned for current and future generations. We must restore faith and confidence in one of our republic's most hallowed patriotic duties, voting.
A message which Rebecca Best says matters.
One thing that we will look back on today and look back on this period and see is that rhetoric does matter. That when we talk about other Americans as if they are our enemies, right, that matters.
Professor Best says it could take years to restore our faith in elections as well as democracy, but of course, it all starts with words. Reporting live in Kansas City tonight, Ariel Rothfield, 41 Action News.
Thanks for that perspective, Ariel. The images we saw will be burned in our memory. 41 Action News reporter Andres Gutierrez also talked with some political experts tonight. Andres, what were their reactions to all of this?
Those who study and teach American history and politics say this is a dark day for our democracy.
Tensions were already high leading into Wednesday's counting of the Electoral College results, a process for the peaceful transfer of power around since the days of the Founding Fathers.
You do so in a manner that paves the way gracefully for the next person to sustain the political process.
It was anything but graceful as pro-Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol in a matter of minutes, the scene unprecedented in modern history.
The British burned the Capitol during the War of 1814, so the damage to the building itself was far more extensive than what's likely to have happened today. And, of course, that was a foreign invasion rather than a domestic insurrection.
Professors and diplomats we talked with believe the attempt to overturn America's presidential election will have long-lasting effects at home and abroad.
I think there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, conservatives, moderates, liberals, who were appalled by what they saw today.
Alan Katz is the former U.S. ambassador to Portugal, where he watched the scene unfold.
And in some ways, my hope is this, that maybe out of all of this we can look at each other and say, well, we're not that. We may disagree about a variety of issues. We may fight hard in campaigns because we want our person to win as opposed to the other person to win, but we are not about that.
Now, in the past, the Capitol has been the scene of protests and, in some cases, violence, including a shooting back in 1954. But experts say they've never seen violence on a scale like the one we saw today. Reporting live in Kansas City tonight, Andres Gutierrez, 41 Action News.
You know, Andres, as a result, what we saw today shocked so many Americans. 41 Action News anchor Gabriela Pagan talked with a few of those people today. So, Gabby, what was their response?
Kevin, it shocked many of those people. From the plaza to Westport to here in downtown, people are still trying to wrap their minds around some of those images we've all began to see. The general feeling here tonight is heavy but hopeful. That while this may have been a dark moment in our history, it's not the fabric of who we are as a country.
I can't understand it. I just can't. I really can't.
Kendall Briggs says he is in utter disbelief as he watched rioters break through security and storm the Capitol during one of the country's sacred traditions.
It was shock that quickly went to anger, that quickly went to hopefulness that we can move forward.
How do you do that?
Stronger leadership, people that will send a message of unification.
After stark images like these, both Page and Briggs are hopeful for a peaceful transfer of power to hopefully begin a path toward uniting the country.
Really, I've seen people scaling the walls, busting out the windows. It's just crazy. It's just crazy the times that we're living in.
Disbelief, astonishment, sadness, anger, and shock. They're all being used to describe how people are feeling after what some are calling an attack on democracy.
It shouldn't have came to this, honestly.
And the fact is, we saw today some very, very divisive and treacherous activity that could go a long way if it isn't stopped.
We spoke to more than a dozen people in person, more than that, who didn't want to go on camera. None of them had a differing opinion than what you've heard tonight. All of them that we've spoken to said they don't understand the anger or emotion behind why anyone could have done what they did today at our nation's capital. Reporting live in downtown Kansas City, Gabriela Pagan, 41 Action News.
Thank you, Gabby. President-elect Joe Biden spoke to the American people today, saying this is not a reflection of America.
Let me be very clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are. What we're seeing are a small number of extremists dedicated to lawlessness.
Shortly after President-elect Biden's remarks, President Donald Trump released a video message on social media.
But shortly after it was posted, both Twitter and Facebook removed the video. Facebook's Vice President of Integrity called the decision an appropriate emergency measure, adding that the removal of the video, quote, diminishes the risk of ongoing violence. Twitter took the video down along with 2 other tweets posted by the president, the company saying that his words violate its civic integrity policy. The president's account has also been locked until about 6 a.m. tomorrow. The company says future violations could result in a permanent suspension. In the latest attempt, President Trump called on Vice President Mike Pence to nullify the Electoral College results. The vice president responded saying that he cannot submit to those demands. In part, it reads, "It is my considered judgment that my oath to support and defend the Constitution constrains me from claiming unilateral authority to determine which electoral votes should be counted and which should not."
And no doubt the entire world watched everything unfold. Most of them had, their phone in their hands and sticking to social media to see what was happening. That includes our local lawmakers. The day started with these intentions, spearheaded by Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, all to object to the Electoral College certification, with Hawley saying, "I look forward to the debate." That debate would be interrupted by disorder. Riots as protesters stormed our nation's capital, forcing lawmakers to rush to safety just a short time into the process. Even those who support President Trump could not support the chaos that soon followed. Many of our local lawmakers taking to social media. Newly sworn-in Kansas Senator Roger Marshall, who initially planned to contest the election results himself, he tweeted, "I share the frustration many Americans have over the presidential election. However, what happened at the U.S. Capitol today is unreasonable and unacceptable, and I condemn it at the highest level." The other senator from Kansas sharing those sentiments as well. Senator Jerry Moran condemning the violence, calling it completely unacceptable and unpatriotic. Representative Sharice Davis shared she had to shelter in place while awaiting instruction from law enforcement, calling today a dark day for our country. Missouri Senator Roy Blunt calling the action shameful, saying there is no justification for violence and destruction. With Senator Josh Hawley, remember, the first lawmaker to announce his intention to challenge the certification, tweeting this: "The violence must end. Those who attacked police and broke the law must be prosecuted, and Congress must get back to work and finish its job." A job admittedly seamless and routine, but today was anything but. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle eager to get back to work. Perhaps one of the most poignant tweets from the U.S. local representative Sharice Davis. It said, she wrote, even on one of the darkest days in our nation's recent history, our work continues. Former President Barack Obama released a statement tonight, too. It reads in part, history will rightly remember today's violence at the Capitol, inciting by a sitting president who has continued to baselessly lie about the outcome of a lawful election as a moment of great dishonor and shame for our nation.
Sickening, heartbreaking. Those are some of the words former President George W. Bush used to describe the events that unfolded in the nation's capital tonight. In a statement, he wrote, "This is how election results are disputed in a banana republic, not our democratic republic. I am appalled by the reckless behavior of some political leaders since the election and by the lack of respect shown today for our institutions, our traditions, and our law enforcement."
Multiple resignations follow today's protests at the Capitol. Those include Stephanie Grisham, the First Lady's Chief of Staff, Sarah Matthews, the Deputy White House Press Secretary, and Ricky Nikita, the White House Social Secretary. NBC reporting more senior members of the Trump administration are also considering resigning. This is a developing story, no doubt. We'll keep you updated on air throughout the night and online at KSHB.com.
Good evening. While all this was going on, a storm moved across. We had some rain, a few downpours, and there's still some activity left out there. I've got your forecast coming up here in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Gary. Justin, the D.C. mayor plans to have extra police in the area in the coming days. We have more team coverage in just 3 minutes, including how our local students are reacting to this historic moment.
This just in, at least 14 officers were hurt in today's riots at the Capitol. One officer hospitalized. The D.C. police chief says the officer was pulled into a crowd and then assaulted. Officers arrested at least 52 people today, confiscated at least 6 guns, and they found 2 pipe bombs, one at the RNC, the other at the DNC. A curfew is in effect in D.C. tonight until 6 a.m. tomorrow. The D.C. mayor says police will enforce this curfew.
Some local students watched today's historic events unfold in real time.
Well, they were watching to learn more about the Electoral College certification process. 41 Action's reporter Jordan Betts has more on what students took away from this sobering lesson.
I believe that as long as we sit here and we toy with the idea of the destruction of our democracy, we will not be able to move on.
A day starting like this.
Madam Speaker, members of Congress.
Turning into this. All while this is happening, students in the Kansas City public schools are watching it unfold.
This has definitely been far from normal.
Lincoln Prep seniors like James McGee and Ani Al-Leary were hoping to spend the day learning about the Electoral College voting.
Why did you want to watch this happen today?
For me, who is now a newly registered voter, to see what's going on so that I can know how I'm supposed to, look at, have all the facts when the next election comes up.
McGee says he sees the difference between how Black Lives Matter was treated versus now.
They were looked at as radicals, and they weren't as violent as what's going on right now, where we have the U.S. Capitol building under threat and it's been locked down because people are trying to break in.
This teaching them what politicians can and can't do when it comes to deciding an election.
We can't go off of beliefs and assumptions, and we must follow the Constitution. The U.S. has been following this procedure for several years, and we can't just ask someone to do something that's not in the Constitution.
These students are saddened to see a day that is supposed to educate and move the country forward, turning violent.
As a country, I hope that we look at this to be as an example to what we are not supposed to do as Americans.
In Kansas City, Jordan Betts, 41 Action News.
Also happening today, winners declared in both runoff elections in Georgia. Democrat John Ossoff narrowly winning against incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue. Democrat Raphael Warnock also won against Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler. The parties are now even, leaving Vice President Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker.
Here's Kansas City's most accurate forecast from Chief Meteorologist Gary Lezak.
Good evening. I'm going to finish this weathercast with some good news. I think we all need some. 39 degrees, east-northeast wind at 6 miles per hour. The Plaza Lights will come off on Sunday, all right? So a few more days to enjoy the Plaza Lights, and it's been a wet day, a wet night, and a wet week. The last 10 days, December 29th, we had 1.19 inches of liquid and 0.2 inches of snow. On January 1st, 0.57 inches liquid and 2.2 inches of snow. That was the lowest total at KCI Airport. And 0.28 of an inch today. So 3 wet storms good for our soil moisture. It's actually been very beneficial. 4,100s in Paolas, 2,600s in Lee Summit. As we thought, off to the north and east, only a trace, a few drops of rain. There's still some precipitation out there. Here's the band of rain as it came in. Look at that, right over Kansas City at about 2:14 p.m. That lifted north, and another round of moderate rain came on in. And then we've had some more showers, and now notice how everything is drifting back to the west. It's starting to rotate around a storm that's way down to the south. Still some rain showers just moving west of Lawrence, but this is about it for the storm system. Again, the main storm is forming right down in here. You can sort of see the circulation. That storm right in here, look how strong it is. The storm is developing, and it's going to shift all the way to the Carolinas. As it quickly moves east, we're going to see clouds move in from the northeast. Look at these low clouds spread in from the northeast. And once they get here, they probably won't clear out. Plus, it's already cloudy. So cloudy from this point forward, Friday, all the way through Monday or so, with maybe a few snowflakes coming down. You can see the clouds just hang strong all the way through the next week or so. There's a storm. Look at that. Snow in Oklahoma and Texas again. We're going to miss that storm. 33 degrees tomorrow morning, 34 degrees by 10, 35 for the high temperature, so staying above freezing. And then 34 degrees, cloudy and staying dry tomorrow. There will be a little breeze out of the north at 5 to 15 miles per hour. That'll give us a wind chill factor of about 25 degrees. 26 degrees for the low temperature tomorrow night, and then we call it a diurnal range. Only 3 degrees here because of all the cloud cover. 26 to 29, then 25 to 28 on Saturday. Maybe some snowflakes Friday or Saturday, just a few snow flurries. 32 Sunday, and then there's the good news I promised. 45 Monday, 52 Tuesday, 57 degrees Wednesday. So we deserve that break. And Kevin and Dee have been training me to stand on this side so we can see that warmer.
There we go. Thanks, Gary. New tomorrow morning, making ends meet in 2021. Consumer investigator Kat Reed explores the popular side hustles you can do to make some extra cash, including one COVID-specific option.
We know today it's been a lot to take and a lot to digest. It's been that way for us too, right, Dia?
Yeah, absolutely. And we want you to be encouraged in spite of the tough day. 41 Action News, we will be here to keep bringing you the news and the context you need. Thanks for spending the evening with us. Good night.